everyone. Welcome to another episode of Mortgage Tech Talks. Back from my hiatus from what was probably, well, actually, I probably was a really good episode. I tend to be the one that rambles, so it's probably the best episode yet with you and
I
Steven
guess we'll
there. But
see. Yeah.
yeah, we'll see what the numbers say. That'll be humbling. Maybe it'll just turn into Mass Tech Talks or something. That would be the MTT
No,
instead of Mortgage Tech Talks,
I,
or I don't know.
I would honestly
Yeah.
say we missed you. We did talk about you a little bit at the beginning, and I think we mentioned that you were one day into having a baby or 2 days, or I can't remember when we recorded it, but it was good. It was a fun meeting. Our second guest, we're going to keep that up. I'm about to head out for a couple weeks for other reasons, not baby, but facial surgery. So,
I
um,
know, yeah, we're a mess. The two
yeah,
of us, yeah.
yeah,
Okay.
but we're keeping it going. So there
Yeah,
you go.
yeah. But yeah, and so I guess this will be a rarity, the two of us just doing this in the next month or so. But we wanted to get it in. I'm still off actually, and I got this baby next to me, 1 week old. But I think I mentioned this before. I said, well, the show must go on. Of all
Yeah.
of all things, even if there's a screaming baby, the mortgage tech talks come first. So we're going to dive right into it here. I think, we had some guests, we had some good discussions there. I think for this episode, we want to kind of get back to, some really kind of practical tips. I think we had some interesting conversations, but I think part of what we want to do with this podcast is really inform people of how they can use tech in very kind of practical ways. And so what we want to dive into today, what I want to dive into today is browser extensions. And browser extensions are kind of a cool thing. I always think that they're going to take off more than they have. Like, to me, a browser extension seems like such a good idea because it's right there. Everyone uses a browser. It's right there. It's just this thing that adds on and enhances your experience. I haven't seen them take off. It's not like, hey, everyone, it's not like an inbox where you couldn't live without it. But there are these extensions that are popping up. There's ones that we use. There's ones that we see a lot of our brokers using. So we're going to talk about the popular ones more and more, but I do think this is a trend. This is just my personal opinion. I don't know if you agree, Mass, where these browser extensions are going to start to be used much more. 'Cause it just seems so native to me, so natural for someone to just pick up and use these. Do you agree with that? I mean, what's your thoughts on these extensions?
It's a good point. I'm looking here and I use Chrome or an offshoot of Chrome. So I think that's probably something important to realize in this. It's like not all browsers are the
Yeah,
same with their extensions, but most people use Chrome these days. Anyways, I have six that
you
are
have six.
pinned, I
Pinned,
should
yeah,
say.
pinned, yeah,
And
yeah.
so I guess to your point, like the benefit is huge in the sense that like you can use it within the same tab. And a lot of times the tab has relevant data or
Yeah,
something instead of opening a new window or even a new tab. And so, yeah, I love them. And I use three of them quite heavily. And we'll some of them are kind of overlap of what we talked about today. So they should get more uptick. And maybe it's just people don't understand them or they're worried about security or they're on some old browser. I think
I
all
don't
of them
know.
have extensions now, though. I think even Edge, which, funny enough, we've had a few people lately on our
Oh
mortgage
no,
product
really?
using Edge
And having
saying
errors?
the
Oh no.
login's weird and all that. And we're like, stop using Edge. But I
I
mean,
thought they got rid of Edge. Oh no, they
they got
revamped
rid of
it.
Explorer
Yeah, yeah,
and
okay.
they
Yeah.
made Edge. Yeah. So
Yeah. No,
Microsoft is still trying in the browser world.
yeah, I don't know. You're right though, right? Where it's like, hey, maybe we'll just get into a couple examples and kind of illustrate how, as you're using your browser, which people now use basically all day, every day, it's the main thing people use. You can have these add-ons and it's, you're like driving a car and I guess it's kind of just like souping up your car a little bit. So it's not essential. You can still drive your car. You can still use your browser without it. And maybe that's why they haven't been taken off. I don't know if they're more luxuries than essentials. They're more, I guess, what people call vitamins than painkillers. Maybe that's a good way to think of it. I don't know. But let's get into the discussion. Let's get into some examples and maybe it'll come to light. So the first one, I'll put it forward just because this is the one that I think in the brokers I talk to is the most used is a password manager. So back in the day, I still think a lot of people do. Maybe you have an Excel spreadsheet, maybe you have just the same password you use everywhere. But more and more, that's becoming not really usable because websites, I know Velocity, for example, is a good example of this. They make you change your password like every 30 days or something, like quite often. And so to be just updating that spreadsheet, maybe you could do that. That's a little less secure, but to use the same password is not available. So a password manager, what it does, it is basically, it's like that Excel sheet, but super secure, right? So it's a place you log in, you have everything there. You can load up, okay, for Google, this is my password. For Facebook, this is my password. For Filogics, this is my password. You load them all up. And the really great thing, and this is where it kind of comes into the browser, is that when you go to Filogics' homepage, the extension recognizes that. It says, hey, you're on Filogics. You saved this password for Filogics. Do you want to use it? And you kind of just hit click, boom, boom, copy pastes it in all for you. Pretty cool. It kind of, depending on the extension that you use, kind of auto populates it and you're in, right? And we've been using those a bunch. We use a couple examples of different ones, but that's, I think, a starting point where I think a lot of the brokers we work with actually use that password manager. Is that what you see too, Mess?
Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of these extensions have something in common where they can pull information from the specific tab or push information into that specific tab, which is really handy. And so in the password example that you just said, it's smart enough to know you're on ABC. It can fill the password. If you go to a site that maybe you haven't been to in a while and you go sign in, it'll actually look and see if that password exists. And if it doesn't, it'll say, do you want to add this to the
Yeah, you
password
could add it
vault?
too.
Which
Right.
is,
Yeah.
and then even further, what you can do with these things is the password ones is, and we do this a lot more now just because we're trying to be more security conscious, is you can get the password keeper to create your own password. And you
Mm.
can tell it,
Yeah.
I want it 15 digits, and it'll make some friggin' thing you can't memorize,
Yeah. Yeah.
which is good, right? So
Absolutely.
yeah, there's a bunch of them out there though.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
it's all right there. So yeah, you log into a new website too. Same idea, right? Okay, I have to think of a password. And now they say, okay, it's got to be 10 characters and it's got to have 3 exclamation marks. It's got to have numbers. And sometimes it's difficult if you're using the same password. Oh, I always use password 123, but oh, I need more things. These things are great. You basically can take those criteria, put it into these managers, and it spits out, hey, here's an example. Saves it for you. You don't have to remember it and it's just there for you. And yeah, the other great thing about it too is we're using this more and more too is it's great for sharing too. So if you for whatever
Yeah.
reason you share your password with your spouse, with your team member, you don't have to send over. We always talk about how email is the least secure part of any part of your whole tech stack. Emails, don't send anything valuable over email because it's the least secure. So you get it into these services. So we use Zoho Vault, so use that as an example. I can load that up. I have that here. I have my repository. We have thousands of passwords now. And if you need to use one of my passwords, like this past week when I've been out, I can just click a button. It can send it to you instead of over email. It's much more secure. It's behind the firewall. It's all those great things. So yeah, I think it's a pretty top used one, and I think for good reason. I mean, it's pretty slick, and they've gotten pretty good with it.
Yeah. And a lot of them have mobile apps and all of that. They're not just browser extensions, but that's honestly the fastest and best way to use it. And we both probably use it 10 times a day,
Yeah, yeah.
honestly. So yeah, those are honestly the biggest benefits. Just on the sharing piece, one of the cool things with these are you can actually share a password without actually sharing the password. Does that make sense? Where like you can share, say, hey, Jenna, you can log into my account, and she can hit the button in the browser extension to log in, but she never actually sees what the password is.
Stays
So
hidden.
that's,
It's only on her
yeah, yeah.
keyboard, basically. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's a cool one, especially when we onboard staff and stuff. And I mean, just in general, you may not want people to see the actual password and write it down or whatever.
But in
So they
theory,
can
Jenna
log
could
in.
copy and paste that into like a Word doc, though, right? Is that how it
I
works?
guess it does store in your
It
clipboard, is
must
what
be,
you're
right?
saying.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, it must be. So
Uh,
maybe it's not as secure as I thought, but
Jenna's got to be a savvy user. 9 times out of
yeah,
10, they're just gonna copy bit whatever. I don't care what it is, right? So that's good. Okay, well let's do a couple more examples and then kind of maybe just summarize. Say, okay, well, where are these things being used? Because I'm starting to see the trend, right? Hopefully, where it's like, okay, well, these scenarios where it is very much embedded in the process. It's easier to do it through an extension than it is to do separately. Maybe that's really where these things are being used. So, did you have another example, Mass? So I know you said you have six there. I have three myself, but
one of the ones that I use quite a bit, it's like a snipping tool or a screenshotting tool, Annotator.
just called
Uh,
annotator. Okay.
yeah,
Yeah.
so it's made by Zoho, which is the stack we use. But
Hmm.
the part I really like about it is you can actually just with one click take a screenshot of just this browser tab, or you can highlight things and then you can quickly edit the picture that you've
Right.
taken. And so those do exist on desktop. I think Mac and
Yeah, Mac
Windows
has
have
like a
them.
native one, right? So,
Yeah,
so that's gonna be my
but
question. Yeah, because I do the native one, and it's okay. What I don't like with the native one, I can take the screenshot, it's there, but then I want to like highlight it, or I want to put like an arrow in, or I want to do that sort of thing, and that's a bit painful. I have to do about three
yeah,
clicks with the Mac one. You have to put in a box and adjust the box. It's not so good. It's honestly not so
that's
good.
honestly, that's the biggest thing with this one is
Mm. I
it
guess it's
actually,
called
so when you
Annotator, right? So, and you
yeah,
got to
yeah,
get it annotate.
exactly, yeah. And now they've got video
Yeah.
built in and all that stuff, but
Uh,
like you can take a screenshot, it immediately goes into an editor, and the part like to put circles or arrows or whatever,
yeah, yeah.
then you can actually download it or just copy it to your clipboard and throw it into something, your
Right.
email or whatever, which I find really handy. So within a few seconds, I can get something out of there. That's a big one I use
Yeah.
many times a day again. Yeah.
Yeah, we use it a lot, obviously, for us because with the tech that we have the browser open again, so you just click it, you can get it, draw the arrows, send it, and I guess you see a lot of brokers using that sort of. I mean, I know you said it was more a personal one. I think where I see or have at least heard people using it is, when there's very something specific, the borrower has to in the computer. So a lot of the times it's like CRA type. Okay, and you need your CRA docs. Okay, click here, then click here, then click here. It's through that CRA portal that people have to kind of navigate through to get their NOAs. Have you seen other brokers use it in other scenarios?
No, honestly, that's probably the biggest one I
Hmm.
see brokers using it. And like you said, this one's honestly, the rest of my browser tabs are pretty personal, like dark modes and stuff like that.
Dark
That's
mode.
we're not going to talk
Yeah,
about
yeah.
that today. Probably the next one I see a lot of people using, including brokers, and I use one a lot. That's one of my six. It's a dialing software.
Yeah.
So
Right. That's
not
one of
every
mine too.
broker has
Yeah.
their phone integrated with their computer, but we do. So apps like Ring Central, Zoho Voice, even Zoom has one now. There's all kinds of them, hundreds of them out there. And so basically, you can call a client through the internet, more specifically through your computer. And so if you're using CRMs, which are in the browser, or even if you're just on a website, you can just click to dial from that browser extension. You can actually just open up in these browser tabs like a keypad and type in a
Type it
phone
in.
number and call them. So that's a really handy one as
Yeah, and
well.
I guess the whole point of it being native to a browser too is I think a lot of the one I use at least, and I think we use the same one, Zoho Voice for
Yeah.
people. I think Ring Central is a very popular one too. Is okay, you get your application back via Logics. They have all their details written in on the browser, and then there's a phone number there. The extension is smart enough. It says that's a phone number. Okay, and
Yeah.
then there's sometimes, at least for ours, a little logo beside it, and then you can click that and go do 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 do. It kind of dials it for you instant. So again, as we think about, how do you kind of adopt these things? It's okay. It's much easier to use it in the context of the browser than it is, just more generally, right? Okay, click, click, having to type it in maybe on your cell phone. It's one click, click the call, and you're having that phone call. Yeah, and I guess honestly for this one, it's a bit of chicken and the egg a little bit because of course for this to be useful, you have to use these internet phones. I mean,
Yeah.
I see a lot of big teams use it because it's like, hey, five people, I have three underwriters and there's two agents and we're all calling the same person. So we want to see everyone's phone calls, what's going on. That makes a lot of sense. What do you see for like more the solo broker? It's more maybe a tangent, a side path, but just curious. Do you see a lot of people using these internet phones? I mean, I totally get it. Like the phone's just so easy. You can call, you can text. That's how you get your referrals. Everything's right there. I see a little bit of both. I mean, my mother-in-law's in town right now. She's a broker actually, and she's running her whole day. She's got her phone. She's calling people, texting them, call whatever, and it seems to work really well. But I just can't in my head say, okay, is there scalability issues here? What happens if you do want to take a week off? You really can't. What do you see, Mass? Do you see the same thing?
I see more and more using the digital phones these
Yeah.
days, and usually the tech forward people obviously do it first, even
Yeah,
if they're a
the
one
people
man
we
show.
interact with are the the
Yeah,
tech forward
yeah.
ones, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
I've been spending some time in other industries lately, and like depending on compliance and stuff, it's
yeah,
necessary to have the call recording and notes about the call and when you made the call somewhere central. And to have it on your phone is not the greatest. It should be in a CRM where the contact record is and the mortgage is. And so I think people are getting that. The benefits outside of just
yeah.
efficiency, it's also compliance. I am seeing more one man shops, and a lot of these tools are like 20, $30 a month,
It's not
maybe
much.
50. Like they're
No,
not much. Yeah.
I honestly think though, I mean, maybe circling it back around to the browser extension conversation too. I think it really does come down to painkillers versus vitamins. I do think the tech forward folks, maybe the folks listening to this, they get those benefits of a vitamin, right? Okay, I can get that in there and it's logged and it's nice. And if I ever need to go back, but that's a nice to have.
It
As
is.
soon as you cross the chasm, because I know, yeah, you're working a lot with financial advisors where it's a compliance thing, and if they get audited, they need to have it. That's a painkiller at that point, right? Because if
Yeah.
you don't have it, oh my God, the amount of pain that you have to go through just to do it. And so, that's on the phone call side of things. But I think now bringing it all back around to the browser extension, we talked about these three different ones. most of them really are vitamins at this point, and maybe that's the takeaway, just to say that hey, maybe these things haven't taken off or exploded as maybe I would have thought, is yeah, because they're still in that category. Go back to the car example. You can still drive your car even if you don't have these tricked out wheels that these extensions might provide. They're cool and they do provide efficiencies, but they aren't essential. So maybe that's really what's missing, is that painkiller browser extension. I haven't
Yeah.
seen one yet. And
I
maybe
mean,
that's just my
yeah,
ignorance. But so if anyone's listening knows one where it's like, this saves me pain, let us know. But I don't think I've seen one yet.
I think a lot of these apps are desktop compliant as well. The browser does give some efficiencies, but you can use it on desktop.
Right.
As I'm saying that, I think maybe the one, and I don't know, I think I still use it. It might just not be in my view, but that one, what, ad blocker, I think that was
Oh
one
yeah,
that
that's
was
true. Yeah.
getting close at certain points to
You're
like
getting there.
necessary.
Yeah, yeah.
um, it would
For
block ads on
certain
YouTube,
websites and
Google,
yeah.
websites, and I think it was called ad blocker. And then Google and all these guys were losing money because of them, and I think they either bought them or killed them or sued
Yeah.
them or something. I don't know. Yeah.
All of the above. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
true. That's true. And that was getting to be a little bit painkiller because there was a while there, and you go to a certain website. I don't think websites are even formatted, but you would go and there'd be like 5 pop-ups. The article's like a third of my screen, and and the ads are
Yeah.
in. So that's maybe a good point, Maz. Where that was really the one where most people used it. You'd get a new computer, you download the browser, and then you get ad block. I could remember doing that because it
Yeah.
was essential, and maybe websites have evolved, or maybe Google has cracked down, or maybe these tools have been bought and deprecated or whatever. And so it's less so now. But maybe that's a good example to say, okay, well that was the closest we got and we got a taste for it. So maybe in the next couple of years we'll see another one like that, but curiously waiting to see when that happens. Because at least for now, the couple that we talked about, so the password manager, Zoho Vault or Bitwarden, those are a couple good ones. The dialer, so being Ring Central Zoho Voice, another good one. And then the annotator, another popular one. Those are more vitamins. We do really like them, really suggest using them, but I don't think they're in that category of painkiller just yet.
No, I think you're right. They are time savers though, for sure. It'll save you time. I can't say how long, maybe minutes a day, maybe hours, but probably not. But they are really nice. And I think more and more the browser is the most important app on most people's computers. I know they might say, oh, Filogics or Finmo or Velocity, but really without the browser, you're not doing any of that. So,
Yeah, you're not. That's how
um,
you access all those
yeah,
services, right? They're not desktop anymore. Yeah.
yeah.
So, well, I know you got to run, and I think I got to heat up a bottle or something like that. I think we'll wrap it up there. This is a quick one, but we wanted to get it in because I know the fans have been just really dying for another episode. So here it is. Please leave any comments. If you have great extensions that you really like, please leave them in the comment section. And thanks so much for listening and for your attention.
See you next time.